Welcome to another edition of the Scout Show here on FoxSports.com. I'm joined by the big cheese at Scout.com, Scott Kennedy. Today we're talking recruiting. Kids are committing to schools earlier and earlier. In fact, we've seen junior high kids making their college choices before they know what high school they'll attend. Why are we seeing such early commits just across the board in all sports?
Well, the other ones in basketball, what you're talking about, and they've always started a little early. But yeah, we've seen 8th graders in basketball make commitments. But I think the main reason, there's more information out there. There was an old saying in college recruiting that said you only offer the kids first that you're not going to get. Basically, USC would offer kids in Louisiana, Georgia, Florida before they'd actually commit the guys from the state of California. But with so much more information out there, you can't wait anymore. So they have to go out and take those guys that they might normally wait till December, and they're committing them now. They're committing them in the summer or sometimes even sooner.
Let's take a look at the early Scout.com recruiting rankings, beginning with the bottom half of the top 10. You've got Bobby Bowden in Florida State at 10, his son Tommy in the Clemson Tigers at 9, followed by Oklahoma, Texas A&M, and LSU. What jumps out to me is A&M and new coach Mike Sherman somewhat making a recruiting splash.
Well, they're one of those teams that are out there getting commitments early. I don't expect them to stay in the top 10, but right now, based on the amount of commitments they have 19 commitments already, so they're about finished. Texas is the same way. They've got 19 commitments. Between the two of them, only one of them is not from the state of Texas. Texas has a kid from Arkansas. Everybody else, even the junior college player on A&M's list, who's coming out of Kansas now, is from Texas. So it's definitely the trend. We just talked about it, committing guys early. It's no more obvious than in the state of Texas, where the Longhorns and Mac Brown and Texas A&M are out there committing those guys and getting them early. And that, among other things, has helped propel them to the top of the early recruiting rankings.
Over the past decade, LSU's been in the top 5, but your rankings have them 6th. Should LSU fans be concerned?
Not at all, actually. Of the top 6 schools, they're number 6. There's only one team with less commitments than them that's ahead of them, and that's Georgia. So they've only got 13 guys. Everybody else ahead of them has more than that, and anytime you're in the top 10, you should never be concerned. So if you're even in the top 15, you've got enough players to compete. 6 would never concern me if it was my team sitting at number 6.
No, you know LSU fans, they'll be concerned over anything. Let's move on to your top 5. We've got Rutgers, Georgia, USC, Texas, and Ohio State. Usual suspects, except for the Scarlet Knights. What's Greg Schiano doing out in Jersey that has kids taking notice, besides the winning, obviously?
Well, that was my first thing I was going to say was winning. You know, they played on some big stages last year. They had that big season in December, finish up November, December. Well, with signing day just 6 weeks away after that, it doesn't really affect that year. Where it makes that difference is the next year. So their 07 class, their 07 year is going to have the most effects on the class of 09. Their class of 09 right now is in the top 5. I think they'll probably slide down eventually because they've got a lot of early commitments, but being in the top 5, and they're going to stay in the top 15. So they're getting the kind of talent they're going to need to stay on that level that they've been playing the past couple years.
Georgia's a major player in part because, they're part of the SEC, but Mark Richt's staff isn't usually in the top 5, if I remember. No,
they are. They've been recruiting very well. There's a reason why they're as winning a program in the South. They just haven't. It hasn't all come together for them the way it has for LSU and Florida. It takes a little bit of luck to get that BCS title game, and with a little bit of luck last year, they may have been playing for it instead of LSU. But they've been winning on that same level that LSU and Florida have had, and they've been doing it with a lot of talent, including the number one or two quarterback a couple years ago, Matt Stafford, Noshawn Moreno. And then the biggest reason that Georgia's able to recruit at a high level is because Georgia, the state of, is the 4th best state in the country for producing Division I signees. That if they take care of their home state, they're constantly going to be in the top 10 in recruiting.
USC, Texas, and Ohio State are the top 3. Pete Carroll, Mac Brown, Jim Tressel, they're the most consistent recruiters, it seems. What makes them so successful?
Well, it's a lot of hard work, but it's also a nice area. If you're looking at USC, the Southern California, there's enough players in Southern California to sustain a top 5 or top 6 team. Then they go out maybe and pick up a guy from outer region, and when you're winning, you can do that. You can go recruit from across the country.
They've had success in like Florida with players.
Yep, they got
elsewhere. Or Louisiana when they got McKnight.
When you become a national program, you can recruit nationally, but one of the ways you become a national program is by not having to even go out of your backyard. So if UCLA can start chipping into that a little bit, you'll see USC have to spread out a little bit. But right now, they've got 3 number 1s at their position overall. Matt Barkley's the number 1 quarterback. Morrell Presley's the number 1 tight end. Vontaze Burfict is the #1 middle linebacker.
And Jim Tressel, he seems to keep his Ohio guys at home as well.
Absolutely. And then they're scooting over into Western Pennsylvania and getting a guy like Dorian Bell from Gateway. So when you've got, I mentioned Georgia and Ohio swap off as the top 2, or number 4 and 5 for producing Division I talent. When you've got a home base like that, and they've got literally no in-state competition. No offense to the Miami of Ohio's and the Cincinnati Bearcats, but if you look at Louisiana and if you look at Ohio, Tulane's not beating LSU for any players,
right.
And Cincinnati might beat Ohio State for maybe one a year. So when you can take care of your own in-state guys, you're going to recruit on a high level, and then you sneak out, like we just said with USC. You sneak over to Gateway in Pennsylvania and pick up the #1 linebacker in the country.
Looking just outside the top 10, number 11, you have Michigan. Rich Rodriguez's staff kind of picking up the pieces with a new recruiting class. How's he turning things around for them in Ann Arbor?
Well, there was a lot of excitement coming in. There's a lot of excitement and maybe a lot of controversy, some might say. But the school he left also, West Virginia, is doing very well. But Michigan, there's a lot of excitement up there. He's going out and hitting the ground running hard. That's typical of most new staffs. They always get a bump early. Usually the first 2 years you get that excitement, we're going to win big, and then if you don't start winning in the second year, then it might drop off in year 3. But right now they're on that initial wave.
Is he getting players that are pretty much fitting his system? Is that the prospect list that you're seeing, that they fit that wide open attack that he runs?
In part, yes, especially at the quarterback position. Kevin Newsom's a 5-star quarterback that can really run and throw. Shavadrick Beaver from Texas is a guy that can play. Some people project him as an athlete at wide receiver, but he's a quarterback that can run and throw. But their highest rated commitment is one that fits any system, William Campbell, defensive tackle. So you get the big guys, and they can play for anybody.
You can never have enough guys up front, it seems. Just quickly, we're talking about high school kids. These are commitments, but these are soft commitments. Not like in basketball where they have the early signing period. There's been talk of an early signing period for college football. Do you think that'll come to fruition?
It might. It might. I've never been a proponent for it because, in my opinion, there aren't as many consequences. The only people that are held to that contract are the student athletes. And that's starting to change a little bit. I think it was a landmark decision when Rich Rodriguez was forced to pay $4 million for leaving his school. That's the first time I've ever seen anything like that happen. Yeah. Typically, you got coaches getting raises, assistant coaches leaving, and who's stuck? Who's stuck? The student athlete. Ryan Mallett has a new coach come in, isn't going to run his system. He transfers. He has to sit out a year. He loses 20% of his entire, 25% of 4 years, 20% of 5 years, 25% of his college eligibility, while the guy that's coming in and replace him is getting a raise. I've always said until it starts to equal out and the kids aren't punished for making the changes like that, let them wait as long as possible before they sign their letter of intent.
Scott, great stuff. We appreciate it. For all the recruiting information you need for football, basketball, and more, check out scout.com and, of course, the college football homepage on FoxSports.com. For Scott, I'm Christian. We'll see you next time.